It didn't end with applause. There was no farewell speech. No emotional press conference with cameras flashing and reporters raising their hands. The decision had already been made, quietly, swiftly, the way powerful organizations move when they have finally run out of patience. And when it came, it didn't wait for morning. It came that same night. Within hours of the final defeat, NPB officials had already prepared the document. The dismissal letter was drafted, reviewed, and delivered directly to the man who had given everything to this team. Manager Hideki Ibata, former player, lifelong fighter, the man the organization once trusted with its entire future, was handed a piece of paper and asked to sign. And he did. He picked up the pen, and without a public scene, without a dramatic protest, he signed his name. Calm. Composed. Resigned in the truest sense of the word. But here is what no one is telling you. The moment that signature landed on that paper, the moment the ink dried on the end of his managerial career, a knock came at the door. And the person standing on the other side of it was Shohei Ohtani. What happened inside that office in the next several minutes was not calm. It was not composed. And it was anything but resigned. To understand why Ohtani's reaction was so intense, you first have to understand what Ibata meant, not just to the organization, but to the players who grew under him. Hideki Ibata was not a manager who arrived from the outside carrying a clipboard and a philosophy borrowed from somewhere else. He was one of them. A former fighter himself, someone who had stood in that same dugout as a player, who had felt the pressure of those same expectations, who knew what it cost to wear that uniform and mean it. When NPB handed him the managerial role, the message was clear: we believe in our own people. The organization was making a statement about continuity, about identity, about the kind of baseball culture the fighters wanted to project to the world. For the players, especially the younger ones who had come up under Ibata's watch, that statement meant everything. And then the defeats came. Not one catastrophic collapse, but a slow accumulation of results that didn't match expectations. The kind of season that wears a manager down not with single moments but with weight. By the time the decisive loss arrived, the executives had already done their calculations. The verdict had already been reached in rooms Ibata was never invited into. The dismissal letter was simply the formal confirmation of a decision that had been made long before he ever saw it. Word moves through a clubhouse the way water moves through cracks, silently, completely, and before anyone thinks to stop it. Players always know before the announcement. They feel it in the change of energy. They notice which conversations suddenly become too careful, which staff members stop making eye contact, which silences last a beat too long. By the time the official notice reaches the manager's desk, the entire roster has already been processing the news for hours. Ohtani knew. And unlike most players, who would have absorbed the news privately, who would have sent a quiet message or sat in reflection, Ohtani did not wait. He did not process from a distance. He did not let the night pass before responding. He went directly to Ibata's office. Not the next morning. Not after a night of sleep and perspective. Immediately. While the dismissal letter was still visible on the desk. While the weight of what had just happened still hung in the air of that room. Those present in the corridor that evening described what followed with the kind of careful, measured language people use when they witnessed something charged and are choosing their words deliberately. What is confirmed, by multiple sources close to the situation, is this: the conversation was heated. Voices were raised. Emotions that had been compressed across an entire difficult season broke through the surface in that small office. The exact words spoken remain private. That is between Ohtani and Ibata, and it will likely stay that way. But the fact that Ohtani went at all, that he felt so strongly about this dismissal that he couldn't simply absorb it and move on, reveals something that no statistics, no contract figure, no MVP award has ever fully captured about who he is. For Ohtani, loyalty is not a feeling you carry quietly. It is something you act on. Even when acting is uncomfortable. Even when the decision has already been made and signed and nothing can be reversed. You still knock on the door. You still walk into the room. You still say what needs to be said. Because the alternative, saying nothing, doing nothing, letting a man who believed in you walk away into silence, is simply not something Ohtani is capable of. With the dismissal formalized and the off-season beginning under a cloud of uncertainty, the Fighters organization wasted no time moving to the next question, the one that will define the direction of this franchise for years to come. Who replaces Ibata? Two candidates have emerged, and the contrast between them could not be more deliberate. The first candidate represents continuity. A figure already familiar with the internal culture of the Fighters, someone who understands the organization's history, its values, its expectations. Those backing this candidate argue that what the team needs most right now is not revolution but stability. A steady hand. A manager who can restore rhythm, rebuild confidence, and guide the roster through what will inevitably be a difficult transitional period. No dramatic overhaul. No culture shock. Just experience, familiarity, and calm. The second candidate is a different kind of proposal entirely. Younger. More analytically driven. Someone whose ideas about modern baseball, about how data should inform pitching decisions, how player communication should function, how a clubhouse culture should be actively constructed rather than passively inherited, represent a genuine break from convention. Those in favor of this candidate are not looking for stability. They are looking for a reset. A signal to the rest of NPB that the Fighters are willing to evolve, willing to take risks, willing to build something new even if it means uncomfortable change in the short term. The organization has not set a public timeline for the announcement. But the pressure is building from every direction. The media is watching. The players are in limbo. Sponsors and stakeholders are asking questions that require answers. And somewhere beneath all of that external noise is a more personal tension, because the identity of Ibata's successor will matter deeply to the players who were closest to him. The players who respected him enough to show up at his office after midnight and tell him so. There is a version of this story that focuses entirely on the organizational mechanics. The board meeting. The calculation of wins and losses. The strategic reasoning behind choosing one managerial candidate over another. That version of the story is real. It matters. It will play out over the coming weeks and shape the Fighters' next several seasons. But it misses the most important thing that happened on the night of that defeat. A superstar, one of the most famous athletes on the planet, a man with a Dodgers contract worth more than most franchises, a player who could have reasonably decided that his obligations to this moment were finished, chose to walk down a corridor and knock on a door. Not for the cameras. Not for the headlines. Purely because he felt it was the right thing to do. This is the side of Ohtani that gets lost in the noise of the numbers. The batting average. The ERA. The stolen bases and the strikeout totals and the historic contract figures. All of it is real and all of it is extraordinary. But the numbers don't explain the knock on the door. What explains it is something simpler and more difficult to measure, a genuine belief that the people who invest in you deserve to be shown, clearly and directly, that you noticed. That you valued it. That you are not so consumed by your own success that you have forgotten the humans who helped create it. Ibata was one of those humans for Ohtani. And Ohtani made sure he knew it, not with a text message, not with a carefully worded public statement, but face to face, in a heated conversation that neither of them will forget. The Fighters now stand at a genuine crossroads. The choice between their two managerial candidates is not simply a tactical decision about baseball strategy. It is a statement about what kind of organization they want to be. About whether the lessons of the Ibata era, the culture he built, the trust he generated, the kind of loyalty that drives a player like Ohtani to storm into an office at night, are being carried forward or quietly discarded. The continuity candidate offers the comfort of familiarity. The reassurance that nothing will be shaken too violently. The promise that the transition will be smooth. The disruptive candidate offers something harder to guarantee but potentially more valuable, genuine evolution. The acknowledgement that what got the fighters here is not necessarily what will take them where they need to go. Both paths have merit. Both carry risk. But the one thing that cannot be replicated through either choice, the one thing that cannot be installed through a new system or a new philosophy or a new coaching staff, is the kind of human connection that made Ohtani walk down that corridor. That connection was built over years. It was built through trust earned slowly, through difficult seasons, through conversations in dugouts and weight rooms and, apparently, through at least one confrontation behind a closed office door on the night everything changed. The new manager, whoever he is, will have to start building that from zero. The announcement is coming. One of those two names will be called. A press conference will be held. Cameras will flash. The new manager will speak carefully chosen words about the future of the franchise, about his vision, about the hard work ahead. And somewhere in all of that, in the careful language and the organizational optimism, the real story will be sitting quietly underneath the surface. The real story is a man who signed a dismissal letter with dignity. A player who refused to let that signing go unanswered. And an organization that now has to decide whether it truly understands what it lost, and whether it is capable of building something worthy of replacing it. The chair is empty. The candidates are ready. The only question is whether the fighters choose the future they deserve, or simply the one that feels safest. The successor announcement is expected within the coming weeks. 2 candidates. 1 decision. And a clubhouse still processing the night Ohtani walked through that door.